So what I would like to talk to you about now is actually the process of taking this final file on my computer, essentially, and getting it out there into the real world. So a lot of people almost take it for granted. You go on YouTube and you can, find music from any of your favorite artists, watch it for free. Same thing, you go on to Spotify. If you have a favorite artist, you look for them on Spotify, read their little bios, all that kind of stuff. But it's a huge challenge actually delivering to these online platforms. It's of course easier than in the past, when you had to go to a record studio and beg them, to produce your record and distribute it and make thousands of CDs. So that's not the world we live in, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have challenges. And so, of course, in the United States, at least, the number one streaming service is Spotify. But you can't just upload songs to Spotify. So you have to go through this whole process, essentially, of either you have to be signed with the record label, like traditional old days, 1970s, 1930s. It doesn't matter. But there are platforms that exist today that are distributors that allow you to go through them instead of going through a record label to distribute to Spotify and iTunes and all these guys. So the distributor that I use is called CD Baby, and it's a really really fantastic service. There's a lot of other distributors, DistroKid, I think TuneCore, one of those names. Anyways, but CD Baby is of those, in my opinion, the best one by far, and that's because they help structure their platform in a way to enable artists to actually get things like like royalties, mechanical royalties, getting payment for their works, and so they have these whole written guidelines because there are a lot of logistical and legal challenges that are involved with getting paid for your music. So nowadays people don't buy your music; they stream it. And so, but in order to collect that revenue, so first of all, you need to be registered with something that's called a performing rights organization, a PRO. And in the United States, the two biggest are BMI and ASCAP. And so I'm actually a registered artist with ASCAP. So ASCAP stands for the American Society for Composers, Authors, and Publishers. And as part of my affiliation with ASCAP, I actually not only am registered as an artist, but I also am registered as a publisher. And so for this album, just like all of my previous music, so it actually is published. And so in order to get it published, I had to form an LLC, a limited liability company. And so my company is called Engineered and Orchestrated Music, and so but that is just to get the royalties. So you need to do quite a bit. But in terms of once you get it out there onto these platforms, so those distributors are good. They can deliver in bulk to a lot of platforms. You can get it onto iTunes and Spotify, and Deezer and other ones all at the same time. However, there are of course different third-party streaming platforms that people love to use. And so the big one is for free music listening for artists is SoundCloud, which I think is a pretty good platform. They allow you to have a couple hours of uploads, and they give you a lot of tracking and stats and all that kind of stuff. But of course, SoundCloud doesn't have any options for people to get paid, unless you're like I think a SoundCloud Pro artist. So one platform that I actually until this album I had been kind of hesitant to use, and now that I've gotten on board with it, I'm just like, wow, what was I doing beforehand? And that's Bandcamp. So Bandcamp itself, it's similar to SoundCloud where artists can upload their tracks directly without having to go through that distributor. But Bandcamp, when someone purchases your music, it actually goes directly to the artist's PayPal accounts. It's like just like there's no delay. For instance, when people have bought my music on, say, both iTunes and Amazon Music, so I talked about these royalty collection agencies, and so it goes through this performing rights organization, like these royalty collection agencies, and then after 30 days, a month, or maybe sometimes even more, that's when I'll see the funds. And sometimes if it's below a certain threshold, you don't get the money until you cross that threshold. And that's, if you're depending on the music for a living, then that could be frustrating. So thankfully, I of course I have a job, but one thing I like a lot about Bandcamp is actually the royalty rate. They give you 85% of the commission, I believe, versus iTunes is something around like 67%. And not only that, but I think on the first Friday of every month, if someone purchases your music, you get 100% of the proceeds, which it's really empowering for people who are independent artists. So that's the main process for how you get your music onto the major streaming platforms. Of course, the platform I haven't talked about, which is the number one tool for music discovery, is actually YouTube. But YouTube, I think most people are familiar that you just create a video, you can upload it to YouTube, no problem. The only challenges, of course, come with actually registering things like copyrights. So I'm not going to go into depth about creating ISRC codes, barcodes for products. But of course, those are more, especially when you're going into physical media like CDs and vinyl records. You want to have that in mind. So that's the main process. Yeah, how you get your music from your computer to your favorite streaming platforms.